On this week's episode of The Loud Quiet, emptiness sadness returns when college kids spring back to school. Hey guys, welcome back to The Loud Quiet. First of all, apologies. Our voices are going to be a little scratchy this week. We just got back from PodFest yesterday, which I'm sure we will be doing an episode about or be bringing up things that we learned while we were there. But today, when we got home, guess what arrived on our front porch?
What?
We are so excited. If you're watching the video, you can see we have replaced the microphone with the copy of our book. Our book has made it. It is here. This is the author's copy. We have to proof it, and then pre-sales will begin.
It is so much fun to put that in our hands. It's something to see.
Yeah, we're really excited.
To actually physically hold it.
We're really excited about it, and we got to share a lot about it while we were at PodFest. So we would love for y'all to go to our website, theloudquiet.com. There's a book button at the top. You can right now get the intro for free, and that's where all the pre-sale information will be ASAP.
Also on the website is a link to the Facebook community. And this episode is going to be entirely inspired by the Facebook community. This was not planned. You know, sometimes we think about, hey, what are some episodes we want to do, that sort of stuff. This time, because of what y'all had put out there, we wanted to spend some time talking about that. And Clancy, you had put a comment, I'm not going to get the exact quote right, but basically, feeling it and realizing when your kid goes back in the spring semester that you start to feel it again, it being that emptiness, sort of sadness.
Even though we've been through it now this is going on year 7, and this will be her last year coming up. It's crazy how I still just get emotional. I mean, I do. I love my child. I love both my children.
You sound like you're being apologetic about
I know, but it is just, y'all drove off, and I went to the gym, and I think I even put this in my comment that I made that Christopher Cross sailing came on, and I just started tearing up and crying. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to see her in like 3 weeks, but it's just weird. So I figured if I was feeling it, there's probably some of the other people out there that are feeling it. And we had a lot of good responses to that question.
Yeah, and I specifically want to call out Kathy, Xenia, Joel, Courtney, and Pamela. Thank y'all for sharing your thoughts and contributing to the community. And well, let's just talk about some of the ones that were out there. Courtney shared that now kids, when they're gone, they're really kind of gone most of the year. It is briefer to have them home than it is to have them away, even in moments where you think you might reasonably expect to be spending time with them.
Yeah, like, now when you used to still have them for spring break, or you'd go with them and their friends' places spring break, now they're going on spring break with their friends. We were talking to Tegan, hey, what are you going to do for spring break? She said, we haven't made our plans yet. And I was like, well, do you want to come home at all? Or do you want to go try to do something? And she said, well, I don't know, and she also turns 21 this year. And she's like, well, I kind of want to be in Tucson for my birthday, and which is also Easter weekend. So I said, oh, if you don't come home between now, then you won't be home until at the end of the semester. And she was like, oh no, I'll come home for part of spring breaks. And for those who kids are past the college phase, they're really not home.
Well, then, home is just a vacation at that point. It's not a return home. And even summers are no longer, for those that have the kind of college kid that traditionally come home in the summer, well, they have their jobs, they have their internships, they have their travels that they are already planning. And that's something I think you don't quite realize as well until it is they're going back after that first holiday period. That's when you realize what just happened, that holiday moment, was the fleeting moment as opposed to this is kind of the home base.
Yeah.
And I think the reverse was true. I still remember that as a kid when I was coming back from college, that's when I realized oh, wait, I felt more connected to my college than I did to my home right around that time.
Yeah, and it's Tegan still comes to our house. Tanner was only home for 3 days
Right.
around Christmas because he went back to his place in Dallas. Now, we saw him a lot during the break, but she was still physically under our roof. One thing you talked about the summers, I really do hope and that we can continue the family some sort of family vacation in the summer and bring your significant others once y'all have kids, bring the kids and just I really do want to try to establish that because we didn't
Yeah.
do that with either of our families, but I really want to try to make that happen.
Well, it's travel is bribery, right?
Yeah.
I
We got to pick some good places.
That's right. And when I was a young adult, before you and I were in a serious relationship and on into marriage, I was still joining my parents on trips. And so travel is bribery for connection. Absolutely. I have no shame about using that mechanism. Now, it's not just the humans that get affected. So Pamela was telling a sweet story about the family dog crying when the dog noticed the emptiness that had been left behind when theirs had left back for school.
Yeah, the pets do. They get affected as well. And then it makes you, sad to see them affected that way. I remember, and Miso, he just goes and looks in her room. He sits outside of it, but he just looks in her room. And then when she was here, there's a place on our landing that he would sit there because he could see her room and then he could see us downstairs. But now that she's been gone for a couple weeks now. Oh no, it's only been a week. Whew. There's a lot of life that has happened between that time and now. He doesn't venture upstairs as much anymore, but I will say his safe space, if there's someone who rings the doorbell or a voice he does not know, his safe space is under her bed, and he still continues to treat that as his safe space.
And it always will be his safe space. One of Tian's friends told an interesting story. I had the chance to pick her up at the airport, and she told an interesting story about how when she came home for Christmas, it took a couple weeks for her cat, and it is her cat, to reestablish that she was, the cat's person, because the cat, all right, look, you've been gone for a while, had attached to Tegan's friend's mom. And she said what was kind of sad is it was right in the last few days that he had converted back to treating her as his person. And then she's going to jet out again. So I haven't gotten an update from the family as to what the cat is doing now. Probably just, like cats do, just switching off to the next person.
Right, yes.
Initially, though, I'm sure there was some staring into rooms and wonder, hey, where'd my person go? Joel shared about traditions. And I'll paraphrase a bit, but almost how the impact and the importance of traditions get amplified when you are under the same roof, because it could be the last time that you're under you never know when it's the last time, especially when significant others get added to it. And we need to talk about rotations and those sorts of elements. You really don't know, is this the last time we'll have the, in air quotes for those of you not watching, the traditional family Christmas?
I think, if you listen to last week's episode where we talked about indulging, I think probably a little bit in my mind, I was thinking, okay, I want to do everything they want to do and everything that we want to do because, who knows? We are going to have to eventually share our kids with other families. And so, it's you probably have that in the back of your mind subconsciously that you don't really think about. But I still wanted everything to be decorated the way they know, everything to be comfortable for them. It was also nice this year. Like I said, Tanner went back to his townhome, but it was great because then could move some of our traditions to Dallas, started doing some
Mm.
different things and having fun with his girlfriend and her parents, who are our friends. And yeah, so it was fun to create some new traditions that may stick around.
I think it's interesting to hear you say that we were trying to jam it on there. I hadn't thought of that consciously, honestly. I just wanted to overindulge. So now what's good is I have an excuse. I was doing it for family bonding. Can I use that on a random Thursday in March? I feel like I want the family to feel closer together, so let's overindulge.
I don't think you need an excuse, but okay.
Xenia shared one, and it was this idea of purposely cementing and creating memories so that that's the legacy that you're left with. And she tied it to her own experience as a kid and knowing how her mom treated things, and then working to do that, and also working to do that even more so with her kids as they were home for the holidays. And I see that. I want, and it's not like it's something unique in this just shocking, wonderful epiphany, but I really do want the kids to have these positive memories. And so you, especially now, no, to say you over-index, you just really think very consciously, I've got to have this, I've got to have this, I've got to have that, to make sure that their traditions are cemented and that the legacy of what the family unit was at that time of life continue to stay that way in their mind.
Yeah. And we talked about, some of the foods that we bring in. And yeah, I mean, they were like, are you making another batch of Texas trash, Dad? Mom, we have to have the monkey bread on Christmas morning, which I had scrapped, but then I was like, okay, I gotta, so there were things that we did make sure that, yes, they were there, and things that are always there. And I hope that they, if they can pass those on to their children, or they can create new ones with, their own family. I'm not going to be that mom that's like, you have to do this because this is how we did it. No, we created our own traditions when we became a family unit.
I like that you brought that in, because you can think back to how you Clancy, I Rick, and then you me Rick Clancy took what we experienced from the past and then evolved it into our own traditions. And now that we have the perspective of experiencing that as the kids and then as the young adults creating our traditions, I think that's a wisdom that we can make sure that we don't get too guilt trippy with our kids around, but we always have done that tradition. We know what the evolution looks like, and we love what our evolution has looked like. And so supporting that, and heck, the kids in whatever phase it's going to be or what it's going to look like in their next stages of life, they might come up with some things that are actually downright great.
Yeah. I found myself also, talking about making memories and doing activities. I kind of nudged a little bit Tegan on a couple of things, like, I said, oh, let's go to the Galleria. I haven't been there in years. I want to see it decorated. And we had a blast that day that we went to the Galleria. I mentioned going to a movie one afternoon, and she was like, well, and then, came around. It was great. We had a great time. So I was trying to incorporate a few more things like that with her. So I really did try to put some things in her head, like, I do want to do this, and I would love for you to come with me. And yeah, and then it ended up great. We had a great time.
So all that, thank you all for those of you that did contribute. And if you ever want to be a part of the Facebook community, it's there off of the loudquiet.com, a button. You can go there and get invited into the community. I wanted to ask you a question. I think we got a little more time here.
Okay.
We talk about how it feels easier with each step, because becoming in the empty nest, it's now our second, approaching our third year of being in this empty nest. What is it about this Christmas holiday that just feels a little more sad when they go back? Why? Why?
Each Christmas holiday or this one in particular? Are you talking about, like, just the Christmas
I
holiday
think
itself?
I'm
Because that is a proven thing. It's the post-holiday blues, and I think it's because Christmas is the one holiday that you put so much effort into. I mean, you put your decorations up as soon as Thanksgiving's over, so they're up the entire month, if you do that, if you decorate. Also, there's all kinds of other different holidays during the month of December that
Mhm.
also have a lot of food traditions, those kind of things revolved around. So for me, I know, and I saw people talking about that. We're now midway into January, but it's still coming down off of that. You put so much effort
Mhm.
to making sure that it's just enjoyable for everyone, that it's probably a mix of, yes, you're sad to see your children go, but you're also sad because the lights are down in the
Oh,
house.
yeah. Totally.
You're not, you know, making all the fun dishes
Yeah.
that go along with it. You're not unwrapping presents. So I think there's just probably, I know there are studies out there about
Mhm.
the holiday depression blues that
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
So
That
I'm
makes
sure
sense.
that's just probably part of it.
That makes a lot of sense, right? That it's just woven into all the holiday feeling. I got another, at least Rick hypothesis, and it's because the break is so short. Like if I
Yeah.
compare it to the feelings when the kids go back after summer, and now Tanner, like we said, is long gone and out. But when Tegan has gone back after summer, well, she's been with us that long, and we
Mhm.
joke about how it's like, all right, we're ready for our house again. And I think there's that element of it that because it was so short, we hadn't quite gotten to that point of we're ready for our house
Yeah.
again. And now that we're back at it, it is nice to be back at the true empty nest. Although I will say, because of the travel that we've done after she's gone back and that sort of thing,
Yeah, we
I
haven't really had a chance.
there's still been a couple times that I've actually been looking upstairs expecting her. So
Mhm.
it hadn't quite gotten there. But it is great to be back in there. I just think that this season particularly, even though you and I have gone through this now multiple times, because of the brevity of it, it comes back a little quicker.
I would agree with that, and there's also so many more activities. Like you're doing there's not a lot of just downtime sitting,
Yeah.
like there is in the summer, and so you've packed in all these activities in the span of she was only home for 3.5 weeks. It was very short.
So if someone's got the blues, and I mean, we're certainly not psychologists or therapists or anything like that, but how have we navigated, just kind of getting back into it after they leave?
For me, it's getting back to a routine. And I know, yes, we were a little disrupted because we had Podfest, which was a nice distraction for the first week of being back
Mhm.
into things. But now I'm like really ready to, okay, let's get back into our routine. Let's get back into the things that we had pushed to the side. I think that, and just, find your community. If you haven't found a community yet,
Mhm.
we would love to have you become a part of our community. You can see that everyone is going through the same
Yeah.
things. I could have put any of those answers that everyone
Yeah.
answered because we're all going through it. So, yeah, find a community, find a new hobby.
Well, I think that's what I would add to that, or maybe just almost themize. I'll just make up words as I'm going along today. I'm
That's
very
great since we, just wrote a book. You're just making up words.
yeah, the copy editors had a fun time with some of the stuff in there. Is be intentional, and it's I think in this, especially for parents of college kids who have come home for the holidays or going back, this is one that the intention behind thriving in the empty nest is perhaps even harder than that first time, because the first time is you're still so shocked, and then you got used to it, and then they've come back, and now there's not the same impetus to go force yourself into that. There's the risk of falling back into some inertia. This is the time to remind yourself of what that meant. If you're single, That means, dive into finding your community, getting out and doing the activities that make you thrive in the empty nest. If you're a couple, it's reconnecting as to what that means for you in your coupleness together and what that means to enjoy each other as a couple without kids. It's that getting back to the intention that I kind of think is harder to do in January than it is in September.
Well, yeah, for one thing, it's freaking cold.
Well, then
What do
snuggle up.
what do you like to do? We like to go for a walk, and that's where we have some of our greatest talks.
Yeah.
Well, it's, it was 22 here this morning, which I know for some of y'all, that's not that cold, but for us Texas people, that is cold,
That's
and
real
I'm not
cold.
leaving my house.
And we're not going to go on some walk together on the treadmills next to each other. So, heck, we don't even go to the same gym together.
No, we do not.
Yeah. We love each other, but you can't come to my gym.
Don't work out with me. That's all. So yes, finding your groove again now that they've gone back, and knowing that some of them will be back home in the next few months, and we get to start all over again with changing up our routine since they're home. So
Yeah, enjoy it while they're not.
yeah. We appreciate y'all so much for the comments. If you have a question that you want to put out there, send it to us and we'll put it out there. If you're looking for answers, guidance, just send us that question on our Facebook group and we'll put it out there. And again, you can find the Facebook group at theloudquiet.com. Hit that community button at the top. And thanks for listening to another episode of The Loud Quiet.